Does this sound familiar? You're at a bustling coffee shop, waiting in line for your morning brew. The person in front of you is having an animated conversation with the barista, their gestures mirroring each other's movements. Without realizing it, you find yourself nodding along, your body language unconsciously aligning with theirs. This, my friends, is the power of mirroring, our first psychological trick that works on almost anyone. Right now, I want to expose a lot of hidden tricks people use to play on our intelligence. This is the part 1 of this long series. But before we go deeper into this topic, you will agree with me that the human mind is a fascinating realm, filled with intricate mechanisms that shape our behaviors, decisions, and interactions. Within this complex analysis lies subtle yet powerful psychological techniques that can influence almost anyone. If you stick around to the end, you will learn the first 5 psychological tricks that can work on anybody. I will explain how they work and why they're so effective. These aren't manipulative tactics, but rather insights into human nature that can enhance our understanding of ourselves and others. Through this journey into the depths of human psychology, I will be uncovering secrets that might just change the way you view the world around you. 1. The art of mirroring. Mirroring is a subconscious behavior where we imitate the posture, gestures, and even speech patterns of those around us. It's a natural human tendency that fosters connection and rapport. When we mirror someone, we're essentially telling their subconscious mind, "Hey, I'm like you. We're on the same wavelength." But here's where it gets interesting. While mirroring often happens naturally, we can consciously employ this technique to build instant rapport with others. Let's say you're in a job interview. By subtly matching your interviewer's sitting position or speaking pace, you can create a sense of harmony that may work in your favor. However, a word of caution. Mirroring must be done with finesse. If it's too obvious, it can come across as mocking or insincere. The key is to be subtle and natural. Maybe you adopt a similar posture or use some of the same hand gestures. The goal is to create a subconscious sense of familiarity and comfort. Research has shown that waiters who mirrored their customers' language and tone received higher tips. Salespeople who mirror their clients' body language tend to close more deals. Even in personal relationships, couples who naturally mirror each other often report higher levels of satisfaction and connection. But mirroring isn't just about physical movements. It extends to verbal communication too. Using similar vocabulary or speech patterns can create a sense of understanding and camaraderie. For instance, if someone tends to use technical jargon, adopting some of that language can make them feel more understood and respected. The power of mirroring lies in its ability to create a subconscious bond. When we see reflections of ourselves in others, we tend to like them more. It's a primal instinct, rooted in our need for belonging and acceptance. By consciously employing this technique, we can tap into this deep-seated human desire and forge stronger connections with those around us. 2. The door-in-the-face technique. Now, let's shift gears and explore a technique that plays on our sense of social obligation and compromise. Picture this scenario. A colleague approaches you with an outrageous request. They want you to cover their shifts for the entire month. Naturally, you're taken aback and decline. Then they come back with a much smaller request, just covering 1 shift next week. Suddenly, this seems much more reasonable, and you're more likely to agree. Welcome to the world of the door-in-the-face technique. This psychological trick leverages our innate tendency towards reciprocity and compromise. When faced with an initial large request that we refuse, we feel a subconscious pressure to agree to a subsequent smaller request. It's as if we're making up for saying no the first time. The name door in the face comes from the image of a salesperson getting a door slammed in their face after making an outrageous offer, only to then make a more reasonable one. It's a technique that's been used in sales, negotiations, and even in everyday interactions for years. Here's how it works on a psychological level. When we receive the initial large request, it serves as an anchor point. Even though we reject it, it sets a reference in our minds. The subsequent smaller request then seems much more palatable in comparison. Additionally, we often feel a sense of guilt or obligation after refusing the first request, making us more likely to acquiesce to the second. A classic study on this technique involved asking college students to volunteer as youth counselors for 2 hours a week for 2 years. Unsurprisingly, most refused. However, when these same students were later asked to chaperone a group of juvenile delinquents on a 2-hour trip to the zoo, a significantly higher number agreed. The initial large request made the second one seem much more reasonable. This technique can be observed in various real-life scenarios. Charities often use it by first asking for a large donation, then following up with a request for a smaller amount. In business negotiations, starting with a high offer can make subsequent offers seem more reasonable. However, like all psychological techniques, the door-in-the-face approach should be used ethically and sparingly. Overuse can lead to distrust and resentment. The key is to ensure that even the smaller request is genuinely beneficial or reasonable, not just manipulative. It's also worth noting that this technique doesn't always work. If the initial request is so outrageous that it offends or alienates the person, they may be less likely to agree to any subsequent requests. The art lies in finding the right balance, making the first request large enough to create contrast, but not so large that it damages the relationship. Understanding this technique not only helps us use it effectively, but also makes us more aware when others might be employing it on us. It's a powerful reminder of how our decision-making can be influenced by the context and sequence of requests. 3. The power of social proof. Have you ever found yourself more inclined to try a restaurant because it was packed with diners? Or felt more confident about a product after reading numerous positive reviews? If so, you've experienced the compelling force of social proof, our third psychological trick that works on almost anyone. Social proof is a psychological and social phenomenon where people assume the actions of others in an attempt to reflect correct behavior for a given situation. It's based on the idea that if lots of people are doing something or believe something, it must be correct. This principle taps into our innate desire to fit in and make the right choices. Let's break this down with a real-world example. Picture yourself walking down a city street trying to decide between two seemingly identical restaurants for lunch. One is nearly empty, while the other has a line out the door. Which one would you choose? Most people would opt for the busier restaurant, assuming that its popularity is a testament to its quality. This is social proof in action. The power of social proof extends far beyond dining choices. It influences our purchasing decisions, our opinions, and even our beliefs. Companies leverage this principle in their marketing strategies all the time. When you see phrases like best-selling, most popular, or 9 out of 10 dentists recommend, you're witnessing social proof at work. But why is social proof so effective? It all comes down to our evolutionary history. As social creatures, humans have always relied on the wisdom of the group for survival. In uncertain or ambiguous situations, looking to others for cues on how to behave was often the safest bet. This instinct is still deeply ingrained in our psyche, even in modern contexts where the stakes aren't as high. Social proof can take many forms. There's expert social proof, where we trust the opinions of industry leaders or specialists. There's user social proof, which includes customer testimonials and reviews. There's wisdom of the crowd, where large numbers of people all vouch for something. And there's even celebrity social proof, where we're influenced by the choices and endorsements of famous individuals. The digital age has amplified the power of social proof exponentially. Social media likes, shares, and follows have become new currencies of social validation. Online reviews can make or break businesses. Viral trends can sweep across the globe in a matter of hours, all driven by the principle of social proof. However, it's crucial to remember that popularity doesn't always equate to quality or truth. The bandwagon effect, a close cousin of social proof, can sometimes lead to mass misinformation or poor decision-making. Critical thinking and personal judgment should always play a role in our choices, even when faced with overwhelming social proof. Understanding social proof allows us to harness its power ethically in our personal and professional lives. If you're trying to convince someone of an idea, showing that others support it can be incredibly persuasive. If you're launching a product, highlighting positive user experiences can boost credibility. At the same time, being aware of social proof makes us more discerning consumers and decision-makers. We can recognize when this principle is being used to influence us and evaluate whether the crowd's wisdom truly applies to our unique situation. The power of social proof lies in its ability to provide shortcuts in decision-making and validate our choices. It's a testament to our social nature and our desire for belonging. By understanding and consciously applying this principle, we can navigate social situations more effectively and make more informed decisions. 4. The foot in the door phenomenon. Imagine you're relaxing at home when your phone rings. It's a local charity asking if you'd be willing to answer a quick 2-minute survey about community issues. Seems harmless enough, so you agree. A week later, the same charity calls back, this time asking if you'd volunteer for their upcoming fundraiser. Surprisingly, you find yourself more inclined to say yes. Welcome to the foot in the door phenomenon, our fourth psychological trick that can work on almost anyone. The foot in the door technique is a compliance tactic that involves getting a person to agree to a small request first, making them more likely to agree to a larger request later. It's named after the old-school sales technique where a salesperson would try to get their foot in the door to prevent it from being closed on them, giving them more time to make their pitch. This technique works by leveraging our innate desire for consistency in our actions and self-image. Once we've agreed to a small request, we subconsciously view ourselves as the kind of person who says yes to these things. This self-perception then influences our future behavior, making us more likely to agree to larger, related requests. Let's delve deeper into how this works psychologically. When we agree to the initial small request, several things happen. 1. We establish a relationship or connection with the requester. 2. We slightly alter our self-perception to align with the action we've taken. 3. We feel a subtle sense of commitment to the cause or person making the request. These factors combine to make us more receptive to subsequent, larger requests. It's as if we're telling ourselves, well, I already agreed to help them once, so I might as well continue. They asked homeowners if they would be willing to put a small sign in their window supporting safe driving. 2 weeks later, they returned and asked these same homeowners if they would be willing to install a large, unattractive billboard in their front yard with the same message. Remarkably, homeowners who had agreed to the small sign were significantly more likely to agree to the large billboard compared to those who were only asked about the billboard. This technique is widely used in marketing, sales, and fundraising. For instance, many charities start by asking for small commitments like signing a petition before moving on to requests for donations or volunteering. Similarly, free trials or samples in marketing often serve as the foot in the door that leads to larger purchases. However, the foot in the door technique isn't foolproof. If the gap between the initial request and the subsequent one is too large, people may still refuse. The key is to gradually escalate the requests, maintaining a sense of consistency and reasonableness. It's also worth noting that this technique can be used for positive purposes beyond sales or fundraising. In education, for instance, starting students with small, achievable tasks can build their confidence and make them more willing to tackle larger challenges later. Understanding this phenomenon not only helps us recognize when it's being used on us, but also allows us to employ it ethically in our own lives. If you're trying to encourage a friend to adopt a healthier lifestyle, you might start by asking them to join you for a short walk rather than immediately suggesting a gym membership. In professional settings, you could begin with small collaborative projects before proposing larger joint ventures. The foot in the door technique reminds us of the power of small commitments and how they can shape our future actions. It's a testament to our desire for consistency and the subtle ways our self-perception influences our behavior. By being aware of this phenomenon, we can make more conscious decisions about the commitments we make and understand the potential implications of even small agreements. 5. The power of scarcity. Picture this. You're browsing an online store when a pop-up appears. Only 2 items left in stock. Suddenly, that product you were merely considering becomes irresistibly appealing. Your heart races a little, and before you know it, you're reaching for your credit card. This, my friends, is the power of scarcity in action, our 5th psychological trick that can work on almost anyone. The scarcity principle is a psychological and economic concept that places value on an item based on how easily it might be lost or how difficult it is to acquire. In essence, we tend to desire things more when we believe they're in short supply or might not be available in the future. This principle taps into some of our most basic instincts. From an evolutionary perspective, scarcity often meant the difference between survival and starvation. Our ancestors who were motivated to acquire scarce resources were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. This deep-seated drive still influences our behavior today, even in contexts far removed from survival. The scarcity principle manifests in various ways in our modern world. Limited time offers, exclusive memberships, collector's editions. All these marketing tactics leverage our innate response to scarcity. But why is it so effective? Firstly, scarcity affects our perception of value. When something is rare or in short supply, we tend to assume it's more valuable. This is why limited edition products often command higher prices, even if they're functionally identical to their standard counterparts. Secondly, scarcity creates a sense of urgency. When we believe an opportunity is fleeting, we're more likely to act quickly to avoid missing out. This urgency can override our normal decision-making processes, leading us to make choices we might not have made otherwise. Thirdly, scarcity plays into our desire for uniqueness. Owning something rare or exclusive can boost our sense of self-esteem and status. It's not just about having the item itself, but about what possessing that scarce item says about us. A famous study on the scarcity principle was conducted by Stephen Warshall and his colleagues in 1975. They offered participants cookies from two identical jars, one containing 10 cookies, the other containing just 2. Despite the cookies being exactly the same, participants consistently rated the cookies from the near-empty jar as more desirable. This simple experiment beautifully illustrates how scarcity alone can increase perceived value. In the digital age, the scarcity principle has found new avenues of expression. Social media platforms use it to drive engagement. Think of Snapchat's disappearing messages or Instagram's 24-hour stories. E-commerce sites employ countdown, timers for deals, and show low stock warnings. Even dating apps like Tinder use elements of scarcity in their design, limiting the number of likes users can give in a day. However, it's crucial to recognize that while scarcity can be a powerful motivator, it can also lead to poor decision-making if we're not careful. The fear of missing out, FOMO, induced by scarcity, can push us to make impulsive purchases or commitments we later regret. Understanding the scarcity principle allows us to harness its power ethically in our personal and professional lives. If you're trying to motivate a team at work, emphasizing the unique nature of an opportunity can increase engagement. If you're selling a product or service, highlighting its limited availability, when true, can boost its appeal. At the same time, being aware of this principle makes us more discerning consumers. We can recognize when scarcity tactics are being used to influence us and take a step back to evaluate whether the perceived scarcity aligns with real value for us. The power of scarcity lies in its ability to tap into our deep-seated instincts and emotions. It's a reminder of how our ancient survival mechanisms continue to shape our modern behaviors. By understanding and consciously applying this principle, we can navigate decision-making more effectively and recognize the subtle ways our choices are influenced by perceptions of abundance and scarcity. As we've explored throughout the part 1 of this series, the human mind is a complex and fascinating machine, driven by a myriad of psychological biases and heuristics. While these ingrained mental shortcuts can sometimes lead us astray, they also present a remarkable opportunity for effective communication and persuasion. By understanding the underlying drivers of human behavior, from the need for consistency and social proof to the power of scarcity and framing, you can unlock new avenues for influencing the beliefs and actions of those around you. Whether you're hoping to sway a colleague, convince a friend, or persuade a customer, the psychological tricks we've covered can give you a distinct advantage. Of course, it's important to wield these techniques ethically and responsibly. Manipulation and deception should always be avoided. The goal is to communicate in a way that aligns with how the human mind naturally processes information, not to trick or coerce. When used judiciously, these psychological principles can lead to more productive, mutually beneficial interactions. Watch out for the second part of this series. As you put these strategies into practice, remember that mastering the art of persuasion is an ongoing journey. Different people and situations may respond better to certain techniques than others. So it's important to remain adaptable and open to experimenting. Pay close attention to the reactions and behaviors of your audience and be willing to adjust your approach accordingly. Most importantly, stay true to your values and integrity. The most effective persuaders are those who have built a foundation of trust and authenticity. By combining these psychological insights with a genuine commitment to serving the interests of others, you can become a true master of influence, one interaction at a time. So go forth and put these tricks to work. With a deeper understanding of how the human mind operates, you'll be equipped to navigate the social and professional landscapes with greater skill and confidence. Who knows? You might even have some fun along the way.